Hi, welcome back for Chapter 3, and Molly Finds Her Courage. I love being the first one up and out the door whenever it is opened, especially in the morning when the chickens are still locked up. The birds are starting to sing, the sun is coming up, and it feels all warm where it shines on a body's fur. The day promises to be warm with no rain. I think about last night as I start my patrolling around the yard. So far everything seems and smells okay. Maybe I'm worried for nothing. Off to my side I hear some sticks breaking and I look that way, but I really don't see anything. That's okay, because I don't smell anything either. I trust my nose a lot more than my eyes. Sometimes I get dust in them and everything gets all blurry, but my nose and my ears don't fool around. I can usually smell anything, and my ears are like radar, so any odd sound is reason to become alert. Everything seems to be fine, so I trot back to the house and sit on the step and wait for someone to let me back in. I can hear them in the house, and soon Dad and Joe come out. They go to the little building by the house and get the shovel and a bucket. We walk to the garden and Dad starts to dig holes, and Joe bends down and picks up wiggly sticks from the holes and puts them in a bucket. I lie in the cool dirt to look around while they continue to dig. As I look at the woods below the bottom of the garden, just past the cow pasture, I see something gray in the brush. I stop panting and stare down there at the color spot that shouldn't be there. I breathe deeply, holding my breath so I can listen. Joe and Dad are making too much noise to hear anything, and I really don't smell anything wrong. But I know I haven't seen that color there before. It is not normal for that place in the brush. I stand up to walk down there, or at least get closer so I can try to smell it. This color spot didn't move as I slowly walked towards it. When I got halfway to it from where I was laying, I turned around to look at my family behind me. My family was still picking up the little sticks, so I looked back to the place of the spot. The color shape was gone. Okay, that shouldn't happen. Something tells me that tells me something was there that shouldn't have been, and it had two plans. One was to avoid me and that way avoid my humans, or two, it wanted to lure me into the bushes where it was waiting to attack me. So now with two considerations, what should I do? I stood there studying the spot I had seen something in. I just couldn't smell any scent. I wasn't close enough to smell anything, but I knew it was too big to be a gray rabbit. It was bigger than I am. So, do I continue where I had been heading to see what it might have been, or do I go back to my family? Molly, come on, we're done here. Let's go fishing. Dad called me, so I turned and raced back to them. I love to go fishing. I glimpsed my ears waving out of the corner of my eyes and decided I am running pretty fast this morning. My ears are sticking straight out. We always have a great time fishing. I have to have help getting in the truck because it is too high. But boy, can you see a lot of things as we go along the road. It is great. Dad has his window down so the wind blows back in my face, and there are so many smells I can't get them all separated. When we finally get to the place they want to fish, Dad unloads the chairs and the fishing poles and stuff. He is taking his time to unload everything, so I guess I will have to try to be patient and wait. Then Dad starts to walk away from me and towards the river. I stand staring out the back window of the truck at Dad's back as he walks away. Dad, didn't you forget something? I think to myself. Joe is out of the truck and he is running to catch up with Dad. He has his short fishing pole in his hand and is dragging his little chair with him as he runs to catch up. Hey guys, wait for me, I anxiously think. I go stand by Joe's door and Mom smiles at me as she puts my collar and leash on. She holds her arms out. Come on, Molly, we won't forget you. I snuggled in close to her as she lifts me down and grabs my leash. I love you, Mom, I think to myself as she shuts the door and we walk after the guys. The bank of the river is kind of stinky with so many smells, and none smell clean. It smells like rotting weeds and just nasty. I sneeze a lot, but that is okay. We are all together. The sun is warm, and it is hard not to get sleepy while my family catches fish. I'm not sure why they do this, because when they catch a fish, they just toss them back into the water and laugh. A long time later, we head for home. Mom caught Dad napping in his chair when his fishing pole was moving around, and Joe had to bring the fish onto land for Dad. He laughed and said he just closed his eyes for a second. I had been watching him, and it was longer than a second that his eyes were closed. It was okay because we were in the warm sun, it was peaceful, and we were all safe. We got home and unloaded. The poles and chairs were put back in the house by the furnace, so we went into the room with a soft floor and big chairs, and everyone found a comfy place to lay in. Mom put a show on the box on the wall, and I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was time for everyone to eat. When that was done, my humans and I walked to call the cow and little cow into the barn, made sure they had hay for the night, and shut the door. Then we all walked to the chicken coop and locked them in for the night too. Afterwards, my family went inside and let me roam around the yard to check on things before I went inside too. I trotted back over by the garden where Dad and Joe had dug the sticks out of the ground and looked around. The vegetables are growing nice, and there are some weeds, but not too bad. I snoop around the corn plants that are now taller than I am by a lot. No new animals had messed with the cornfield today. That was good. You needed to be on the constant lookout for mice. They love corn, even if it's only stalks growing just yet. The sun was way down in the sky, and in some places where I was walking, you couldn't see the sun anymore. The bugs were becoming quiet, and most of the daybirds were now singing their evening and night songs in preparation for nighttime. As I roamed around the garden making sure everything was good, I didn't think about any dangers that had moved into my woods. I just forgot to remember. It is so peaceful as I stroll around. I love this time of the day, I think to myself. Every part of the day I love. Each has its own special feel to it. Morning is cool and damp. Daytime gets hot and buggy. Evening gets cool, and usually a wind starts to blow. I heard sticks softly break in the brush by the old tree in the cow pen, so I studied that direction closely. I suddenly remembered there was danger now in my woods, and it was getting dark, and I was a long way from the house. I felt a soft breeze gently blowing towards me from the direction of the noise. I am able to smell something. I'm just not sure what it is, though. I can't see anything that didn't look like it shouldn't be there. The only thing I can smell is very faint. It was coming from the side of me, so I turned my head to look in that direction. Way down at the end of the pasture, I saw a spot of gray again, like I did this morning. I smelled the air really close, but the smell was so weak I wasn't sure. Then out of the corner of my eye, the place I had originally been studying, I saw a spot of gray too. So there are two of you and one of me. This is not a good situation to be in, and I need to get help fast. I need to get Dad. I turned back towards the house and ran as fast as I could to the door, where I began to bark and jump to get their attention. Dad came and began to scold me for jumping on the door. As soon as he opened it, I took off running towards the danger area, and he turned away to shut the door. I returned barking and jumping until he came to the door again. When he opened it, I started running back towards the garden. Again he shut the door, but this time he stood watching me. I returned to bark and jump, and he opened the door and stepped out. "What's wrong, Molly? Do you want to show me something?" I ran back towards the garden, hoping he would follow me. Joe stepped out of the house, and Dad told him to go back inside. Dad understood there was trouble. He stopped at the shed and got the pointed shovel, and then rapidly followed me as I headed back towards the garden. When I got to the edge of the garden, I stopped, stood very still and quiet while I waited for Dad. He came up, stood looking around, and said very softly, "What am I supposed to be seeing, Molly?" I gently stepped in the direction of the first gray spot that was now 2 gray spots. The second one had gone up by the first, and both were just standing there. I could tell they were looking at Dad and me. "Molly, stay," Dad quietly whispered. I stopped immediately. He had seen the trouble, and he would take care of it. I felt relief. Dad had understood me. We stood there a very small amount of time. I was trying desperately to smell whatever that was, and I'm sure Dad was trying to figure out what to do. Then suddenly the gray spots just vanished. I didn't even really see them leave. They were gone. "Okay, Molly, let's go back to the house. We have a problem, don't we? We'll have to figure out what to do. Everything is locked up safe tonight, so it should be okay." We got back to the house where Dad told Mom and Joe about what had just happened. Dad cautioned Joe to stay by Mom and the house tomorrow, and he warned Mom not to worry about the cow, but she would need to keep the chickens in their pen and not let them out. I felt pretty good knowing I had done something really important for the safety of a farm. I still don't know what those gray spots are, but it was enough to make Dad concerned. I was up when Dad got up to leave for work. I walked with him to the truck, and he actually reached down to pet me before he got in and drove away. I was part of the security team, and today I felt like a full partner with Dad. I think I actually bounced when I walked back to the house. I was so happy. When it was time for Mom to go let the cow and little cow out and to make sure they had their food and water, Joe and I escorted her. She had the big pointed shovel along where normally she doesn't carry anything but the cow feed. While they took care of the cow chores and checked on the cat and kittens, I wandered down the direction of the first gray spot I had seen last night. I was paying full attention so I wouldn't be surprised at anything, but I really needed to know more. I got pretty close to the spot I saw them in and started to smell around. I crossed the trail, and it was the same scent I had discovered where Joe and I went by the fallen trees. So I hadn't been imagining things that day. There was something new in our woods. I thought back to my visit with the old farm dog when he said he smelled something around his barn, but didn't know what it was. I wished I could talk to the old dog about this. I'm not about to go visit his farm to do that, though. No one would be here to watch my family, and I, to be honest, was just a little bit afraid of these strangers. It was a slow day staying close to the house where it was safe. I lay in my chair and thought about Cow and Little Cow, and wondered if they were safe or in danger. I thought about the little kitten I like, and wondered if it and the cat family were okay. I know the chickens are, because that rooster is so mean nothing's going to hurt the hens, but I still thought about them. Maybe when I get let outside to go to the bathroom, I will roam around and check on these farm animals. I can smell and hear things they can't, so I need to take care of them. It didn't look like Joe was going out to play today. Mom was making him stay in the house until I guess she and Dad figured out what to do and what was safe for us all to do. I asked to go outside, and as Mom was opening the door, she cautioned me. Just be alert, Molly, and don't do anything heroic right now. I looked up at her as she was talking to me and then walked out into my yard, my beautiful yard. I didn't know I missed so much by staying inside. I wasn't about to let some wild animals keep me from my rounds. Not me. Maybe I could persuade the rooster to walk with me and keep me company. I didn't think there was much chance of that happening, so I just started to trot on my normal routine. The edge of my yard is fine. Nothing strange moving around the bushes here. There are a couple of squirrels shouting at me from the treetops, but I usually ignore them. They don't know how to speak, so I can understand them anyway. The chickens all seem to be calm and doing the things chickens do. They're always scratching around and pecking at stuff, and they chicken talk all the time. I walk toward the cow barn and keep smelling the air and listening in all directions. When I stepped in the barn door, I immediately smelled that wild woodsy scent I had identified before. The scent was everywhere. On the hay the cats were on, rubbed on the barn wall, and all over the floor. As I turned back towards the house, I quick glanced at the barn, and I almost just about missed seeing a gray shadow in the shade by the barn. It was looking right at me, and I froze in place. I was closer to it than I ever wanted to be, but it was kind of hiding around the corner of the barn, trying not to be seen. I must have just come upon it as it was leaving the barn, and it didn't have time to get away. It didn't move as I stood there staring at it. I immediately thought of running for the safety of the house, but that thought scared me bad. What if this thing started to chase me? It's taller than I am, so it must be able to run faster than I can. I could only think to make a lot of noise and hope Mom would hear me and come help. I started barking and snarling at the gray shadow, but it didn't move. This made me angry, so I kind of charged at it a little bit and kept barking and snarling while showing as many teeth as I could without biting my tongue. I don't think I have ever been this angry before, and I forgot my fear. Yet the shadow still didn't move. Boy, this thing is brave, because I'm being really bold and loud. I was able to get right next to it when I realized it was a hay bale Dad had set there and left. Little Molly. I was so relieved to know it was a hay bale and not a coyote. I felt a little foolish overreacting like that. I'm sure glad the kittens didn't come out to see what all the noise was about. Well, at least I know I have some courage, and I don't need that rooster to help me patrol around our home. Dad finally came home, and we all met him at his truck. Anything happened today? He asked Mom. I began to dance around his feet and tried to get him to notice me. He just kept walking to the house with Mom and Joe. I ran up and sat in his way, and he just walked past me. So I went in between his feet and tried to stay in front of him without getting stepped on. Molly, what is wrong with you? He grumbled. I jumped on his leg and then started to run to the barn. I stopped and looked at him. He was standing there, looking at me as I kind of ran towards the barn and stopped to look at him again. Mom, you and Joe wait here. This is how Molly acted last night. Don't come over here until I call you. Dad started to walk to me quickly, and I ran to the barn and waited for him. Now, how do I tell him they were in here? I glanced up at the cat family, and they were all cuddled in a ball. I will smell the walls and the floor, I thought. He'll understand. When Dad got to the barn, he stopped and looked at the cow and saw it was okay. He got to the barn door and stuck his head inside. I was standing there waiting for him. He just looked around. I started smelling the walls, the floor, and then out the door towards where we saw them last night. I stopped to look at him, and he was watching me. Then I walked back to him and sat down. Boy, you couldn't have told me any plainer what you need me to know, Molly. They were in here during the day. Then for some reason they left the barn and headed back to the woods. They're getting bolder, aren't they? I think we're going to have to do something about them. While Mom made food, Joe filled my dish, and I sat by Dad on the couch. He was looking at the TV and petting my ears. I felt good knowing he would now take this problem into his control, and we would fix it. And that is the end of the chapter. If you enjoyed it and want to find out more about how they're going to fix it and what happens next, please subscribe, click the notification bell so you'll be alerted the next time I put a new chapter up. And thank you for listening. We'll do this again soon. Have a great day. Bye.